So last week we talked about, what did we do on Friday? With the expenses. We talked about expenses, which was a part of what? Budgeting. Okay? And then remember I said, hey, we're going to talk about saving and investing options. Okay? Today we're just going to talk about saving options that we have. Alright? Here are the objectives for the lesson. So, like I've told you before, time and time again, objectives are what we want to know after the lesson is over. Okay, so if you can answer these questions once we get done with the lesson, then I've done a good job, you've done a good job, everybody's happy. Alright, so list and define different types of saving strategies, list and define different types of investing strategies, compare and contrast saving and investing strategies, demonstrate how to calculate interest on different types of accounts, demonstrate how to calculate yield on different types of accounts, and explain why an emergency savings account is important and how to determine how much to save. Okay? Today we're just going to talk about savings. Alright? Tomorrow or Friday we will talk about investment strategies. Okay? So, saving. It's something that, who in here likes to save money? Okay? That's a good quality to have. I kind of vary myself. I think it's a great idea to save, but then I don't always save as much as I'd like to. I have friends that they used to never spend any money that they were given, even when we were in high school and stuff, and they would save and save and save. I didn't ever really understand that because I also live by this, okay? Saving and investing is important, okay? But you can't take the money with you when you go, okay? So I think you really need a good mix of how much you save versus also enjoying your time here on earth, okay? And getting things that you need or want at times, okay? So helps to fill short to intermediate term goals, all right? The main objective is maintaining liquidity and meeting future expenses without hassle. Okay? Does anybody know what that means? If you are really liquid with your assets, anybody know what that means? Nobody? Okay? So what liquidity means is it's basically cash. How quickly can I go get this money and use it? Alright? So let's say that you didn't necessarily have a lot of cash, but you had a lot of CDs that we'll talk about, or bonds, or maybe you invested in a lot of real estate, you owned a lot of property. Well, if you wanted to use money, let's say that you needed money quickly, but really the only asset you had was property, what would you have to do? You'd have to sell it. Can you just go out and sell it tomorrow and have that money? Not likely. Okay? So, the closer you are to cash, how quickly you can get it is what that means. Okay? Alright, we'll talk about investing when we go over that. We'll skip to saving again. Okay? Alright, so this is income which is not consumed, that we don't spend. Alright, it can be referred to as a deferred consumption. And it's typically for smaller or shorter term goals in the near future, such as going on vacation, buying a car, etc. Does anybody have a goal right now that they're saving towards? At all? You can say it. Nobody? Yes, Brandon?
Dumbest goal ever, being able to have enough money to get something from the vending machine.
Get something from the vending machine? That shouldn't take too long. Hopefully not. Alright. How many of y'all in here are, because y'all are ninth graders, anybody who's 15 in here? So what's probably the biggest purchase you have coming up for your family, not necessarily maybe you, but you're going to turn 16 in a year and you're going to want a what? A car. Alright, you're going to want a car. So that's something that people will save up for. Alright, it usually involves little risk of losing money. Okay, since you're not investing it, you're putting it in a savings account, it's not going anywhere. Alright? But it also earns a lower return, and we'll talk about what that means today and with investing. Alright, here's some of the different types of saving accounts. Okay, we have just our regular savings accounts, high yield bank accounts, certificates of deposits or CDs, as you've probably heard, money market funds, annuities, qualified tuition plan, and a 401k plan. All right, is any of these, have you heard of these before? Okay, it's nothing super new. Some of them may be. The biggest one that you probably hear your parents talk about sometimes are a 401k plan. Okay? All right, so just a regular savings account is an interest-bearing deposit account held at a bank or credit union, and it provides a modest interest rate, but it is different from a checking account. So if you put money in a checking account, it's just going to sit there. It's never going to gain any interest. It don't matter if you have it in that checking account and don't take it out for 50 years. If Weston puts in $10,000 in a checking account, 50 years later, he's going to have $10,000 in that checking account if he never uses it. Okay? A savings account does have an interest rate with it. All right? But it's normally pretty modest. Okay? So you may get 2 cents a month depending on what you have in your savings account. Okay? The more money and the higher the interest rate, obviously the more money that you accrue while it's in that savings account. But it's normally really, really low, but it's also really to take out. So if you had $20,000 in a savings account, okay, all of a sudden you need to buy a new car, you need to buy a new washer, you need to buy a new dryer, whatever it may be, life comes at you fast, which it does and will, okay, and you need to go get that money now. You can go to the bank, hey, I need to get some money out of my savings account. Absolutely, you get it out, that's it, okay? And that's the reason it has that lower interest rate, all right? That's just a regular savings account, okay? And it is used for money which is not intended to be used for daily expenses, okay? Then we have our high yield bank accounts, all right? This earns a higher interest rate than a standard savings account, okay? And the reason is it earns more money. It is usually requires a larger initial deposit, and the access to the account is limited. Okay, so there's going to be a minimum of how much you're going to have to put in the account. All right, you probably couldn't just put $5,000 in it. You'd have to put a larger sum of money in that account, and you just don't have free access to it like you do a normal savings account. Okay, and some of the barriers could be you can only take money out 5 times a year or 3 times a year, and it all depends on the bank, what your interest rate is, and all that good stuff. Okay, and it is this isn't something that you can just go and get immediately. It's normally only offered to customers who have accounts with that bank. All right, a CD, you used to hear about these all the time when I was growing up. That's kind of my grandparents, they would talk about CDs all the time. I don't hear as many people using these now, but it's still an option. Okay, it's a savings certificate with a fixed maturity date and specified fixed interest rate. Okay, who knows what the difference between a fixed interest rate and a variable interest rate is? Fixed is never going to change. Okay, all right. So if you have that interest rate, it's staying that way the entire time. Okay, when we talk about buying homes and buying cars, we'll talk about this again, because if you can get a really good interest rate when you're buying a home, you want it to be fixed, because you don't want to have to deal with that interest rate going up and your payment going up. Okay, but CD offers a fixed interest rate and a fixed maturity date, which means Gideon, if he's getting a CD, all right, he's going to put $20,000 in that CD, and he cannot touch it for 5 years. Okay, or it can be 10 years, or it can be 15 years. Whatever maturity date or length of time that you say, hey, I'm not going to touch this money, all right, the higher the interest rate is for you. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so if I wanted to put money in a CD and I said, hey, I don't even know if they offer it for 1 year, but if I just said, hey, I want to leave it in here for 1 year, get the interest that I can, and then I want to be able to access it, they would give me a low interest rate. All right, I wouldn't make a ton of money while it was in there. But if I said, hey, I want to have a 30-year CD, okay, or if that was the choice that I went with, then I would get a higher interest rate because it's a longer maturity date, all right? It requires customers to keep the money in the account for a specific amount of time, like I said, okay, but it is also, here's some of the periods they have: 6 month, 1 year, and 5 year, okay? And I believe they go up a little more than that as well. All right, money market fund. This is a mutual fund which only invests in low risk securities, okay? This is the one that is kind of hard to distinguish between being a savings or an investing account because it does invest, but it's low risk securities, all right? When we talk about stock market investment, you can be high risk, you can try to make a lot of money, you can have it in funds that really are diverse and are kind of high risk to get a really big rate of return and try to make a lot of money, or you can invest in low risk securities which aren't going to change much, all right, and you're going to get a return, but it's not going to be a really big return, okay? An annuity is a contract between an investor and an insurance company in which the company promises to make periodic payments to the investor, okay? The investor buys an annuity either with a single payment or a series of payments called premiums. All right? All right, this is the main one I was wanting to get to. 401k plan. Okay? Most, I don't want to say most, a lot of companies and organizations offer a 401k plan to their employees. Okay? All right? It's a really good savings account, okay? It's an employer-sponsored retirement savings plan. So, the overall goal of a 401k plan is if Micah works at Mercedes, okay, and she gets to her age of retirement, she's been paying into her 401k plan, okay, that comes straight out of your check, all right? The plan is, once she retires, she has a large sum of money in there that she can retire with, okay? Now here's the difference between some companies that they offer and some that don't.